Oh, that's Peter's working on that for you, isn't he?
I'm with Kyle Harney and Miles Prescott. We're at the Friends Meetinghouse at the intersection of Schuster Street and Route 53 in Pembroke. And Miles is over there struggling with the key, trying to get the door open. Now,
this is the men's
Now,
entrance. That's the women's
again,
entrance.
we've got two entrances here. The men go through one, the women go through the one on the left. Okay. Now, we'll go inside.
Take these out. So this is the meeting house.
So tell us. We
So-
come in. Now, tell us about the building.
Well, the building was built in 1706.
Yep.
Robert Barker Jr. was one of the builders. He's the one who built the house I live in, Ada Hall House.
Now, that's another house that's in Pembroke.
Yeah, that was built in 1685.
Okay.
We still meet in this building. This is, it's a historic building, but it's a living building. Because in the summer, the Quakers do meet here.
Yep.
We don't meet here in the winter because there's no heat and there's no electricity. So it's very genuine. This is what the Quakers would have seen when they came in.
Back in the 1700s, when it was first built, they would have met here in the wintertime.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, they've been all bundled up.
Yep, there were fires.
We're still here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
1810, I believe.
Is that a original piece?
Well, 1810, so it would have been after 100 years after.
Okay.
About that. There used to be a right from the top of there used to be a pipe that would come from there to here and go across.
Pass through the.
And back in 1706, the building used to be faced this way, this side of the road. So
Now, was it always in this place?
Yes.
Position,
Yes.
Kyle? Or?
Yes,
It was.
there was a controversy that it had been moved here, but what moved here was the actual meeting, the group of people who meet here.
It was built here.
But it was built in this spot.
Okay. Now, Miles, you mentioned it was rotated, it was moved, it turned.
they turned it. I don't know if it was for the way that the people would travel or the direction of the sun. But when they did turn it in the 1830s, that's when they put the two. They used to have one door, and those doors are actually upstairs. They've taken half of those, and the original doors are up there, and then they made the two. They made the two
Vestibules. Yeah.
vestibules.
Okay.
So this down here is 1830s.
Now, the men would meet down here, is that accurate?
No, the men would be on one side and the women would be on the other. But women often in a Quaker meeting are the leaders of the organization.
Right.
They're the ones who are the, just to put it in layman terms, they're the pastor.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but a traditional Quaker though would.
Didn't they have the men? Well, the men and the women had their own meetings
Yes.
on either side.
Yes, and then they pull these.
And they'd pull these up.
And then have a joint meeting, yeah.
Joint meeting.
So these doors are slide up and down.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a working house.
All right.
The woman used.
Did they talk about the same discussions, but
Well,
in their own, just their own gender, or they talking about different topics?
I don't know. I think it was just mainly an overall modesty that people had back then. But there's almost no talking actually involved in a Quaker service. Our meeting will go sometimes weeks without saying a word.
So, really?
Yeah, the basic service is you come in, you sit down at 10 o'clock, the meeting starts. Everyone sits in quiet contemplation. If someone is moved to the point where they feel the need to say something, they'll stand up and say something. Sometimes they don't even stand.
Quake, right?
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Is that where it comes from?
Yeah. So they would stand up and they would say whatever it was they're moved to say. Now, this isn't the opening of a debate or a conversation. It's just some realization that person has had, and they say it, and sometimes
And it can
resonates.
be about any topic?
Sure. Someone could say.
A cow got loose.
Someone could stand up and say, "Last week was my mother's 87th birthday. It's really nice having her with us, and I'm glad she's still healthy and alert." And then they would sit down, and then that would be it. Everyone would just think about that, and it might speak to somebody who needs to hear it.
Okay.
But often, and then at 11 o'clock, one of the leaders of the Quaker meeting will reach out and grab the person's hand next to them, and everybody, reaches and holds hands, and we all just kind of, recognize that we're all together, and then that's it. That's the service.
Services are 1 hour.
Yes.
Okay. Now that person that brought up that thing about her mother, could somebody else continue that topic?
It's
Generally
generally not. It's generally not encouraged.
Okay.
Someone might say something, that they felt moved to say. But I'm a pretty talkative person, and all my life I've only stood up and said anything maybe twice in Quaker meeting. You have to really be moved to say something. But often people have said something that spoke to me personally, and it's affected my behavior. So.
Be good at your meetings because I sometimes I like to talk too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, I think what I've learned is that in situations like that, it's like you find yourself really questioning: is this something I need to say? Is this going to be helpful to anyone? Is it something I need to say a lot? I mean, often the answer is no. So.
But what's interesting is the Mormons went around in the 50s and they photographed all the meeting notes in a lot of the Quaker meetinghouses. So we have notes going back to when it was in Scituate in the 1680s, all the way to the heyday of like 1890 until like 1890 when it was started to get less and less people.
Yeah.
But in those meeting notes, the business notes are very
Specific.
They're specific, but they're not really detailed.
No.
And the main thing is weddings. They'll have all the weddings.
Do they have wedding services in here?
Yeah.
Now, wedding services are very different from a typical Quaker meeting.
The man would sit on this side, and the women would sit on
Right.
this side.
Now,
But
Kyle,
at the
have you been here for?
At the service, though, is everyone in the congregation, or what we call the meeting, gets a chance to tell the bride and groom what they need to know about being married. So they get advice from everybody in the room.
Married as a Quaker.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a
As a
humongous, beautiful piece of.
And they still write. Everyone writes their name. It's like
On what?
It's a
on the-
huge
on the
parchment.
note.
It's
on the.
yeah, and then people will have it for the rest of their lives. Often people frame it, and
Okay.
it's like a beautiful piece of calligraphy. Speaking of calligraphy,
Right.
there's some interesting little things
Those are
here.
1890s.
Yeah.
1890s.
These kids
children,
were-
sketching. Yeah.
They were bored, so they were drawing a Conestoga wagon.
Typical
there.
church service, right?
Because I heard that the barn probably was over there, where they would keep the horses.
So that's the
I can't remember what that says.
that's the
underneath it.
calligraphy. Now, is there a date on that?
It says 18. I believe it says 1890.
1880.
18. I think it's a 9.
Is it a 9?
1890.
Oh, right there it is, right under the
There's
horse.
some-
The
there's some
donkey.
of it over
That's more like a donkey.
Yeah. That must have been the little
It
brother
does
drew
look
that
like a
one.
donkey.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wasn't a good artist.
So how many members do you have? How many friends?
Currently now we probably have about 15.
15.
Yeah, it's a small group.
Do you get tithed or anything to support the,
No,
Maintenance of the-
we put in our own money. That's
as you decide to
yeah, like
donate something you,
well, I usually once a year you make a tithing.
okay, but they don't take money out of you for,
It's not to be honest with you, it's not a very heavy overhead.
right, I'm sure.
We don't have to buy incense and.
So what goes on up in the balcony?
That's what just be for overload seating. It used to
Overflow?
be that's where African Americans would sit and Indians. That's where they would have to sit.
Really?
Yeah,
That's original. That's all original up there.
yeah.
That was
From the 1700s?
Yeah, that wasn't touched. They moved everything here. So these would have been facing this way before, and then
Right.
These chairs would, these benches would be facing which way?
they would have been facing this way because the door used to be there. and
Everything would have
back
been
and forth.
turned.
Oh, they moved the door, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So then they put the doors there.
It's sort of what I've seen before, like in the ones in Philadelphia. This is the oldest Quaker meetinghouse in Massachusetts and the second oldest in the country. The first oldest is in Philadelphia, and the benches all face each other, which these do, but they would have the wall between, so the benches would face, the wall.
This, meaning this separation between
Yes. So this is a little bit
genders,
different. Yeah.
that wall.
But like I said, we stopped doing that a while ago. It wasn't a year ago. It was like
Now, do the females still say stay on the left-hand side?
no.
No.
In fact, we mainly all sit over there.
What's,
Breaking the rules.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
us.
some Quakers you are.
Americans.
We did have a good, there was about 60 people here before Memorial Day for memorial service, actually. There was a local couple, and they used to come here to see the reports of the foxes. I don't know if you ever seen pictures.
I
of
saw
all the
those on
foxes.
the website.
All the foxes, so the husband and the wife would come here and watch and look for the foxes. They never saw the foxes. The man passes away. The children come here to meet me and see the place, and the foxes appear.
Oh.
And the founder of the Quakers was a fox. His last name was
Yeah.
Fox.
That's right. That's right.
We're
That's
thinking about a storybook. Someone might write a storybook on the foxes of Quaker Meetinghouse.
right. In fact, your corgi looks like a little fox, don't you? You little Dickens with
That's
those
true.
teeny
She
little.
has been mistaken for a fox.
We used to have a Newfoundland, and the kids that are in the neighborhood thought we had a bear.
I have a Newfoundland,
Do you? Yeah, they're big dogs.
a huge dog.
Massive saliva output.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fur. So, what is this? That little placard? Where would that have been? That sign?
That, I do actually know that because I do the research for the
Yeah.
Historical Society, and in our archives, I found out where the history of that. That was made that was actually made for the Kingston bicentennial. And Kingston was established in 1727, so in 1927.
The town. Okay.
1927, they had a 200-year thing. This would have been on the front of the wagon. We have another one on the other over in the Historical Society. But the woman who had that built, Susan LaFergie, was born in. She was born in 1821, and she died. She died in 1831. She died in 1931. So she would have been 95 years old.
Wow.
She's buried over here.
Is she? We'll take a look at
Her
those.
father owned a mill.
That was Calvin
Yeah, the
Shepherd.
Lafergie Mill.
He owned what, a lumber mill?
A mill.
Lumber.
Was it?
Yeah, he owned he did a couple mills.
Yeah, they
he
usually
did like
did.
three. He had a cotton mill, depending on what was needed.
Yeah, they
They
say-
were on
He had
some.
one mill that would like clean clothing,
Yeah.
like it would take the color out or just
Really? Wow.
pretty, huh?
No, I don't think anyone wants to see that.
No one wants to see that.
I've seen one toilet. You've seen them all.
Just the four-seater's a little unique, but
Yeah. That's
He mentioned that to me when we were waiting outside.
yeah. That one house I just sold had a two-seater in the barn,
where's that?
right down the street.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Is that the one that I went to?
Oh,
Possibly. Yeah.
With the
you're not talking about
with the goats?
the ones that moved over to
Yeah. Willowbrook.
to Willowbrook, yeah. Well, that's where Susan LaFergie.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
See,
that's her kitchen.
incestuous town.
She wanted the recipe of Susan LaFergie, and it was some kind of apple tapioca. Some kind of apple tapioca from a 1909 cookbook.
Wow, it sounds awful.
You know, a couple of years ago, I went to the Historical Society. You had the building opened
It's
there, and you had tours of the graveyard.
Oh yeah, they've done that a couple of
Yes,
times.
Jacqueline, our current curator, former curator, would give those.
And her son
graveyard
does stuff
tours.
too with it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he would do.
pointed out a few old
Yeah, we got some cool ones.
We actually-
graves, and then
We had a ghost tour too of that. It was kind of an exaggeration.
you're going to be doing that anytime soon?
I don't know.
Again?
We'd like to do that.
Probably around Halloween, man.
We'd like to do that.
We'll open up the
You
building
enjoy it?
for the artifacts that are in there. It's very, very
Yeah,
interesting.
There's
Yeah,
neat stuff in
we'd
there.
like
Very
to have-
interesting.
We're planning to have open houses so that like these buildings will be open for the whole day. This building or the Ada Hall House,
Mm-hmm.
Historical Society.
Okay. Is that what that is, the Ada Hall House?
That's right.
Historical
Yeah.
Society? Was that it?
That's where I live. Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Okay, why don't we go outside and tour around the,
Okay.
bring me to the cemetery.
I'm
And,
glad that Miles is here because he knows more than I
Well,
do.
you know the,
I know the
the
Quaker
order, I
stuff.
don't know the order. As much,
so if anybody's looking for a light, not very guilt-ridden church service, this is the place to go.
Absolutely.
Should I,
sorry.
lock up here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, don't put that in there. But it's always like, it's like do unto others and that's it. It's,
Yeah.
not any of this extra stuff. Let's go this way and I'll show you some of them. And Miles could show us where some of the significant graves are, but
Yeah, we're planning to do like a global ground penetrating radar because we
Ooh, cool.
think there's about a dozen graves that are missing. Some around here,
right.
some around
Do you have, is there something with show the plots, cemetery plots?
Like a map.
I don't think we actually have one. We thought about one for here.
But
you
there's
can
not,
find most of
historically,
them
there's nothing in the archives of who was buried where.
well,
And,
the Quakers kept track, and also you can on graves.com.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You can find there's basically 52 graves here, but there's only 40 plaques. So
do you ever use Find a Grave?
yes, find a grave. That's
Is that what you meant?
Find a
Oh,
Grave,
yeah, I do that all the time. I have a.
So one of the Barkers is buried there, and then we think that Samuel Gould was, he was one of
Oh,
the
I played
Pembroke-
him.
He was one of the Pembroke Resolves.
Yeah.
He played him in a skit we did. He was one of the 5 people that signed the resolves that actually stated possible separation from England.
Yeah.
He was a Quaker, so, pacifist. But
Yeah, same way. Well, Nathaniel Greene was a
there's
great
there's
revolutionary
about 3
general.
graves that we think are missing here from past photos.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of these are the same families, and a lot of them were mills. They worked in the mills.
Yeah.
Are there any slaves' graves in the woods here?
Well, we think that if there are, they're outside of the
Yeah.
wall. Outside of the wall. So either they'd be behind there.
Yeah.
But
Or Andrews dug them up.
But if we did a GPR, we could include that in the
Yeah.
whole. And it's maybe 3,000 to 5,000. We're trying to get a grant for. Tracy Marino's trying to do that.
Wow,
And a
cool.
very interesting grave is right here. John Bailey was one of the early, similar to Calvin Shepherd we talked about, who was a leader of the Quakers. He was the leader of the time back in the early 1800s. And he comes from a famous family of clockmakers in Hanover, Bailey clocks. You can find them online. He actually had 3 wives at different times.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
1751.
But there's supposed to be 4 Baileys in this area,
Oh, yeah.
so they're missing.
Ah.
They're missing.
The shepherds are over there.
There's some that are falling into the ground. There's some,
Yeah.
some work we need done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chick was doing this, and it was
Yeah.
like you could see like images. And it's
Wow.
like,
Wow.
so this is a lot of the Shepherd family over here,
George Byron.
and then his daughter's family, the LaFergies, and the Wests.
The Wests
Over here.
still live in Pembroke. They're across the street from me.
The Wests, if you're going through Pembroke, there's a
No, is that
West,
Barker Street?
Yeah.
West Box Factory is on Washington, and that's still there.
That was their company.
That was their company. That building, well, Calvin Shepherd would have been around there in the early 1800s. That building burned down in 1938, but it's been well redone and preserved.
Thanks to the guidance of the historical district.
Okay. So, what'd you say? 80 people buried here? How many?
No,
I
we
think
think 52?
in the 50s, in the 50s, yeah, in the 50s. Well, that's what we have, but who knows? Some of these Quaker places they think there's more buried there.
Wow.
But the burials are from the earliest ones are the late 1700s, and the latest go into the early 1900s.
Now, could somebody be buried here now? Present
I don't
day
know.
friend? Could they
That's a
say,
good question.
I want to be buried
I'd
in the
like to
churchyard?
be. I'd like to be.
That's a good question.
What if
I hope they'd wait till I die, though.
The thing about the Quaker grave sites is, in the old days, they could only be 10 inches long, and they had to be very, not too outspoken. So
Yeah.
they were very, and even before that, they would just use rocks. So like some places didn't have any
sorry,
dates.
what was that again now about?
Everything is very, very modest. You don't want
You talk
to.
about the
Gravestones,
Yeah,
yeah.
they would just put a
Okay.
rock there.
So you couldn't have a big monument,
No.
sarcophagus.
So unless it was a family plot, some of the people that would have been buried in the 1700s, there would have just been a stone or something there. So
With no name on it or anything, just
And what one of the members, Deanna,
Yeah.
had mentioned to me was, with this, it's not, the importance is not the building, it's the actual service and weddings. Service and weddings, they're not really about the material
Right, exactly.
aspects.
Exactly.
But
And
it's interesting because
very
so many
simple, right?
Quakers are successful businessmen,
It's true. Isn't
but they're
it?
just doing that to feed their families, not.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
true. It's like they're not trying for that. But yeah, Leona Helmsley, her husband, Harry Helmsley, was a Quaker.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of Quakers you'd never.
well, Richard Nixon.
Richard
right?
Nixon, yeah.
Certainly, yeah, that's right.
He was a Quaker.
She was never, she wasn't very kind to people.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't. But she did it with style.
So the woman so here's Calvin Shepherd. He's one of the most famous Quakers in the area.
Yeah.
He lived till 91, and his
Hold on there.
this was his son-in-law.
Lemuel.
He was from Canada, and he actually had a mill the mill goes back to the 1700s, but they call it Lafergie Mill just because, even though he wasn't around then.
There's a tapestry of it over my fireplace in the parlor
From
of the mill. Yeah.
And this is the one that built that where it says "Last of the Quakers." That was her that put that together. So she was born in 1831.
She had my birthday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
June 24th. It's coming up.
January 24th.
Oh, January 24th. So she lived 100, and there's a picture of her and her sister taken in 1848.
Her sister's Mary.
Yeah.
And who's Lemuel?
Lemuel was her husband, and I don't know if she ever married. Well, actually, I thought she married into the West. Yeah, she married into the West family.
These stones were painted red. These are reddish, right? These stones.
I don't know what
They do have something on them.
is that. Is that from the
I don't know.
like on the back, the red? That is interesting. I haven't.
Must be maybe like an iron in the stone.
But
It's a pretty place, though.
It's beautiful. Good place for a picnic.
Yeah. With your ancestors.
so, and when Calvin Shepherd passed away, his house was on Pleasant Street. They moved it quite a ways. I think it took like 3 months to move it
Wow.
with dozens of oxen. But before they had telephone poles to get in the way.
Where did they move it to?
To the Willowbrook.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's Willowbrook. Yep. I think they waited till he passed, and then.
Yeah. And the sisters lived there.
Yeah, they lived there, and the Lafergie Mill would have been there, so it would have been closer for
Yeah.
them.
Now, how is this? You notice the grass has recently been cut.
Yes.
Who's responsible for maintaining?
I think the DPW does that, don't they?
I thought we had sheep,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Quaker sheep.
but we are doing we're submitting a proposal for, that's where the foxes go there. They go under there,
Yeah.
and there's a hole over there near one of the graves they go under, and they just go under, and then on the other side there's a couple,
They have the run of the place.
and we hear, someone told me that they go off to Willowbrook sometimes, so
Oh, really?
they go over.
I believe it.
But as you see the painting, the painting, peeling paint, we have a CPC project to do restoration of the woodwork, the carpentry, and then inside the masonry work.
I shouldn't see that being a problem, getting some money out of the town
Yeah. they're very keen on preserving this.
Right.
It's an iconic building, it is. They did a mock-up of it on the Greenway a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I saw that. They
Yeah,
took
it was the wrong color, but
It was bizarre because I took pictures of that and I
so-
didn't realize it was it until it almost looks like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
the-
that flip there.
Yeah, I think it was yellow. So
Oh, there's a fox.
yeah.
There's a fox.
What are these circular?
Oh, those are to keep the mice out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have those around my house
What are they,
too.
meat traps?
Oh,
Yeah.
she smells the foxes.
Okay.
Hope we're not going to have an altercation.
You smell the foxes?
I got to get out to the dentist.
Okay.
I got to get a picture.
Kyle,
Oh,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much for coming down.
My
allowing
pleasure,
me to come
anytime.
in. I appreciate it.
thank you. Good to meet you.
Miles, Prescott,
Anytime,
nice to see
anytime.
you, and thank you for the little tour.
Anytime you want
Maybe
tours,
we'll get to see some of the other houses in town.
Yeah.
or the Historical Society if you ever want a tour there.
He's got loads of information.
We've got tons of information.
Love to. Thanks a lot.